Welcome to the Practical Buddhist. Today's talk is about coming to understand that your ego is not your true self. The reason this is so important is because if the ego mind were your true self, you would be stuck with your feelings and perceptions. You would be stuck with suffering. There would be no freeing yourself from its control. What does it mean to say that your ego is not your true self? Think of it as separating fact from fiction. You are a bundle of things, a collection of attributes, physical and mental, that can be factually described, as is the case for the world around you. Then there are the feelings you have for yourself, your family, and everything else. As was explained in the previous video, the mind-suffering connection, those feelings, those labels, are just a product of your ego mind, your learned experience. They have no inherent existence. And they are the cause of your suffering, not the reality of your being or the experiences themselves. So to say that your ego is not your true self just means that these labels, these feelings, are not your true self. For example, if you view yourself as a catalog of negative labels, bad, stupid, failure, ugly, whatever, your true self is none of those pejorative labels that your family, peers, and culture have saddled you with. You just are who you are. If, on the other hand, you view yourself as someone special, a paragon in whatever way, once again, your true self is none of those things. You are just who you are. You have your talents or qualities, but that doesn't make you more special than the next person. Every person is special. You're just fortunate that you've had the opportunity to uncover your specialness. Most people haven't. This process, therefore, does not take away your individuality, your factual attributes. This is about freeing yourself from the labels that you apply to yourself and the world around you in order to end your suffering. One of my favorite examples of how this process impacts how we view the world around us and ourselves is a song from the musical South Pacific. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. And these judgments stay with us throughout our lives, especially those about ourselves. Now, it's relatively easy for most people to understand and accept that they are the way they are because of their life experiences. They may not be happy about it and blame others, but it conforms with their observed reality. But how can one go on and say that the feelings and perceptions that flow from your ego mind are not you? The first thing to understand, and this is not double talk, is that, in one sense, these emotions and perceptions are you. They're not the real you, but they are definitely part of your ego mind. They will thus always be a part of you, because it is not the goal of spiritual practice to get rid of or sanitize the ego mind. Let me repeat that. This is not about getting rid of the ego mind. It's about freeing yourself from its control. Okay, you say, but you're still saying that the feelings and perceptions that flow from my ego mind are not the real me. How can you say that? The answer is very straightforward. The Buddha once asked his disciples whether a thought or feeling caused them suffering. If it did, he said, quote, "This is not you, this is not yours, this is not yourself, for yourself would not cause you suffering," end quote. This is a powerful, basic truth. No one's true self would cause them suffering. So the next step in understanding that your ego mind is not your true self is to be aware of and acknowledge the fact that the feelings and perceptions that flow from your ego mind are the cause of your suffering, not the reality of your being or the experiences themselves. Think about it. If you apply negative labels to yourself, it won't be hard for you to understand and accept that your feelings and perceptions cause you suffering. Calling ourselves ugly or stupid or fat, for example, is obviously harmful. It's degrading. Whereas acknowledging that we are plain, that we weigh a certain amount, or that we're not intelligent is not degrading. If we can separate the facts from labels, that will be clear. These labels keep us from maximizing our potential because they hold us back. We feel we are not worthy. We feel there's something wrong with us. We will not be accepted. Likewise, when we apply such negative labels to those around us, whether family or strangers, it creates a barrier and separates us from them, which in a different way also keeps us from maximizing our potential, our relationship with the world around us. But what if you generally apply positive labels to yourself? How does that create suffering? Positive labels are harmful because they are a trap. We believe our culture's marketing message that if we have money, if we have a certain lifestyle, if we are physically attractive, etc., that we will be happy. But in reality, that does not follow, hardly. Most people are unhappy, despite having attained these things or having these attributes. This can happen in several ways. First, if you feel you are special, that typically sets up expectations that you deserve certain experiences in life, that you deserve to be respected, acknowledged, etc. And so each time you're not, it's a cause of frustration and suffering. So, for example, I recently read that when the Broadway star Patti LuPone did not get the film part of Evita, she was so depressed that it took almost a year of therapy for her to recover. She thought it was her due, and when she didn't get it, it almost destroyed her. Second, no matter how good you have it, how successful you are, you will always want more. It's the nature of the beast. It's a product of your learned insecurity. You always fear losing what you have, whether it's through your own action, for example, aging, or being eclipsed by someone else. Here's another example. Joan Rivers was a very successful comedian, even as she grew older. Club dates all over the country. But in a documentary, she shows the interviewer her schedule. There were a few empty days that month. She said that any empty dates killed her. She felt a failure. When you are done watching the video, I ask that you very carefully examine all aspects of your self-image, your ego mind's take on the reality of you. Be aware of all the labels you apply to yourself, both positive and negative, and become aware of how they cause you suffering. The point, again, is not to dispute or disown the physical or mental facts of your being, or the talents or habits you have or don't have. The point is to see how the labels we, which is to say our ego mind, applied to ourselves cause us to obsess about these things and cause us suffering. Also, examine your feelings and perceptions towards the world around you, both immediate and far. Become aware of how these too cause you suffering. As you undertake this exercise, it's very important to be aware of the difference between pain and hurt on the one hand and suffering on the other. Pain and hurt is real. It happens. Suffering is a product of the mind. For example, when you are sick or have an accident, the pain is real. But when you become gripped with fear about what you are experiencing, that is the mind asserting itself with its endless what-ifs, its obsessive worry about the future, which of course is unknowable. It's the fear that ties you up in knots and causes you to suffer. not the pain of the illness or accident. This exercise is also important because if you continue to think you suffer because of the way you've been treated or what life has thrown your way, then there is no way to end your suffering because you can't change the world. You can't change the nature of those close to you. You will suffer because you feel your peace and happiness is dependent on external forces that are not in your control. But when you come to realize and acknowledge that you suffer solely because of the way your ego mind relates to yourself and the world around you, you will find the door to freeing yourself from suffering, to finding inner peace and happiness. And that will give you a feeling of control because you have the power to open that door. That is the basis for the often said serenity prayer. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can. This will not be an easy exercise. Your ego mind will revolt at your attempt to free yourself. There will be a lot of pushback. Please note that during this whole process, we do not blame the ego. This is not a blame game. It's about understanding the truth, reality. In differentiating the real you from your ego mind's take on you, always remember the words of the Buddha. If it causes you suffering, it is not you, it is not yours, it is not yourself, for yourself would not cause you suffering. Once you've gone through the process of learning that your ego mind, your feelings and perceptions, are not your true self and are even the cause of your suffering, it is time for the truly good news. Learning that your true self is your heart. See you in the next video. May you experience peace and happiness.